everybody, Jolt here from the Token Minorities, and I am here with NPL Season 5, Week 5, this week against the New York Metangs. Now, if you happen to not watch my previous two videos for this league, I've lost 2 games in a row in this league, and I have only done that one other time in my entire draft league career. So that's pretty new to me, and the most important part, or the most important thing to do after something like that is to pick up a win so you prevent that losing streak from really becoming a reality. So this game is very, very important. And I really want this one, because if I lose 3 games in a row, I'm not going to be a very happy camper, to say the least. But before we dive into this team at all, let's take a look at some roster changes that occurred on my draft. There's been a handful of them, to say the least. So some of the new Pokemon that are joining the Toronto Staraptors draft for the National Pokeball League include we have Darmanitan coming in exchange for Victini. I made a trade with Aberforth that involved my Victini. I felt I needed to get rid of Victini because I really didn't need it for my roster in order to be successful, and I felt like it was clogging up a lot of cap space that I would like to utilize to fill some of the other holes that I had discovered in my team throughout the past 4 weeks. So I felt trading Victini was, despite the fact that I love Victini in the format, I think it's very, very good on my team as well. I just don't think I needed it in order to be successful, and I felt that it was more important to pick up some other pieces and fill those holes and turn this team into a championship caliber team instead of just a playoff caliber team. So that's the goal with all these trades. First and foremost, Darmanitan for Victini gave me a few more points to work with, and then I also traded Empoleon for Starmie to give me rapid spin support, giving me a better matchup in general against my division, particularly Rob's team, which has Hazard Stack, including Sticky Web with the Defiant Mon in the back. Starmie's pretty nice for that, for sure, in addition to the fact that Starmie also has pretty nice matchups against my entire division as well. Offensively, so that's definitely pretty nice to have as well. And then I also traded off Cloyster in exchange for Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl giving me a bit more speed on my team, because speed was something I really was lacking, in addition to having a fast Stealth Rocker that wasn't weak to Pursuit. For example, I had a Zelf, which kind of filled that role initially, but then a Zelf plus Victini, both were Pursuit fodder, both were things I needed for their offenses as well. It just wasn't really working overall for my team, so I actually ended up dropping a Zelf and dropping Nosepass, oh no, for Lantern as a bird check and electric immunity, and then I also picked up Bronzong from free agency, giving me that nice steel type to support my Sylveon and my Salamence, and forming that nice tight core there. And I do think the team is much more solid than it was before. I think it might be a little bit weaker offensively just because I don't have Victini anymore, but let's be honest, Starmie still hits pretty hard on switches due to its analytic ability. Sylveon hits like a truck. Salamence now, due to my roster changes, can be used in a lot more offensive situations, and that was something that I was really trying to free up with these roster changes, as given how the team was initially, it was pretty much stuck in a more defensive or supportive role because I really didn't have a great switch into fire types, and now that I've traded Empoleon away and picked up Lantern as a bulky water, I have a good switch into fire types. So that's generally what I decided to do with my roster, and actually I'll have Starmie as well for the fire types. It's not just Lantern. So I have a lot more that's allowing Ments to be freed up and be a threat, the threat that I imagined it would be whenever I originally drafted the team. So I'm pretty excited to see how these new acquisitions work out, and this week against the New York Metangs is when I will get to test them out. Now, the original coach of the New York Metangs is Razor Wolf, and he is coming off a big win last week against Rob, a win that really many people didn't see coming, as Razor was an 0-3 team going into last week, but he knocked off Rob, who, in my opinion, is a contender for the championship in this league, so he's very, very good. Razor stepped up his game that week and knocked him off. Now, Razor actually had to step away from the league. He's going across the seas, and he's visiting family elsewhere, so we have a new coach stepping in to replace him for, I believe, the remainder of the season, and that is Bidoof, formerly known as WaterAndGrass, from EXPNU and I believe the MPL as well for a brief period of time. So if you're familiar with WaterAndGrass from his relatively large YouTube channel, then that's the guy I'm facing this week. And I don't know a lot about him, admittedly, but I do know that he made playoffs, I believe, or was very close in EXPNU, and is, quite frankly, a very competent player. I think he's going to fit in with the National Pokeball League quite well based upon those credentials, but I'm pretty excited for the chance to play him just because I've heard so much about him. I've watched several of his videos in the past, and I know he's pretty darn good at what he does. So it's going to be a pretty fun match to say the least. But let's go ahead and look into the team matchup now that we're already 5 minutes into this video. But he has Megalodios, Megalodios, the broken one, Azumarill, Terrakion, Entei, Hydreigon, Drapion, Sceptile, Togetic, Regigigas, Steelix, and Thundurus Therian. So his team is top-heavy, to say the least. It is very top-heavy, with Megalodios, Azumarill, Terrakion, Entei, Hydreigon, and Thundurus T all being enormous threats to any team. And then the bottom mons are not that threatening on paper. Drapion is actually pretty threatening against my team, but in general, I don't think it's the best mon in the format. Togetic, I don't need to say anything about that. Regigigas is Regigigas, and Steelix can't hit very hard at all unless it's running Life Orb Sheer Force, and that set is just simply not very effective against my team when I have the likes of Starmie, Lantern, I shouldn't say Lantern, Starmie, or the Mega Venusaur to completely wall it, as well as Bronzong to an extent. So he's got some threats, he's got some stuff that I don't really have to prep for that much. So it's kind of nice. It's definitely, it helps that we make Megalodios so expensive, because when someone drafts Megalodios, they're not really able to draft all these other powerful components to their roster to really make it shine. So I'm happy that it's that expensive, despite the fact that it's, you know, really broken. I don't want it even in the format, but whatever, that's just my opinion. Anyways, Megalodios is a huge threat to my team just due to the fact that it is so good, so I really have to prepare carefully for it, to say the least, and I need to make sure that my entire team has a way of dealing with it, or at the very least, if something doesn't really have a way of dealing with it, I need to be able to safely switch into things that can deal with it, for example. So that's going to be essentially the game plan with my team. Now, the problem with that approach is that the things on my team that best counter Thundurus Therian are setup bait for Megalodios. So it's going to be tough, to say the least, just that combination of Thundurus T and Megalodios. But on the bright side, the rest of his roster really isn't super threatening outside of Drapion, like I mentioned before. Drapion puts in a lot of work against my team. But the Entei, I have several possible responses to. Hydreigon, I have Sylveon, I have Mega Venusaur. Both of those can handle it pretty well. Stallbreaker, Hydreigon's good against Mega Venusaur, of course. But even so, I can set up a Leech Seed maybe on the switch and something like that, and then I can maybe 1v1 wear it down at the very least to the point where I can get in my Sylveon for free, something along those lines. I really don't think he can afford to run Stallbreaker though when I have a Sylveon in the back, just because he needs that coverage of Dark Dragon against my team, in my opinion. But let's see, Terrakion's kind of a threat as well, although less so now after my trades and such, because it really just switched in against a lot of stuff on my team back with the original roster. But now I do have the likes of Starmie, which can run defensive sets and outpace Terrakion at the same time. Mega Venusaur can just be defensive this game, honestly, if I need to, but I mean, he also has the Azumarill, so a defensive Mega Venusaur makes a lot of sense, unless I'm trying to also wall the Hydreigon, so I actually will have some Spadef investment as well this week, which I'll get to here pretty soon. But the biggest threats most certainly are Megalodios, Thundurus Therian, and the Drapion, and I do believe I will be able to take care of those pretty well with the team I have come up with this week. So let's go ahead and hop on over to the team I decided to make, and no surprise, I am starting this off with Mega Venusaur, because he does have the Azumarill, which is a massive threat if I don't have Mega Venusaur. So as long as I have it, there's no way that I'm going to be taken out by an Azumarill. The only two sets that can actually beat this Mega Venusaur with an Azumarill, those are Perish Trapping and with the Sap Sipper ability, if I were to not run Sludge Bomb, and then Natural Gift, Flying, or Psychic on Azumarill. Both are ways that he can take out Venusaur with it. As long as I outspeed all Azumarill, I should have no issues there, because after a Belly Drum, unless he is Keviaberry, he will not be able to survive a Sludge Bomb from my Mega Venusaur, even at max HP. So with the Mega Venusaur spread, as you can see, I am speed creeping a Jolly Azumarill by 1. I have nearly max HP, and then I have a little bit in defense, and then a bunch of investment into Spadef to ensure that I cannot be beaten by a Specs Hydreigon. That's generally the idea with this set. I want it to still be bold with a little bit in defense, just so I can make sure that I can wall the likes of Scarf Terrakion and Azumarill, and the like, I guess Entei as well to an extent. So that's the general idea behind the EV spread. Leech Seed just to spam against his team. He only has one grass type that can switch in freely on, and that's Sceptile, and as you know, Mega Venusaur doesn't care at all about Sceptile, so it's pretty safe to run Leech Seed this week just to generally support my team as well as Mega Venusaur. And then Sludge Bomb Giga Drain is just fantastic coverage against him. The only thing that can really come in and just set up on this is the Drapion, but the good news is I'm really fat naturally, as is the case with Mega Venusaur in general, so I can just go over things like Sludge Bomb and Giga Drain and wear it down to the point where it'll be in range of the likes of my Starmie or Lucario and stuff like that, as Drapion I believe has access to no priority moves, maybe Quick Attack, but I don't think it gets Sucker Punch or anything like that, so it's really not a huge threat in terms of sweeping my team. It's just going to be a decent wall breaker in the end. So that is the Venusaur. Next up is the Sylveon. This set I really went back and forth between two different options. I kind of wanted to run Quick Attack in the Calm Mind slot just because it'd kind of be nice to pick off the Hydreigon if it were to somehow become a threat to my team and maybe Sylveon was weakened, but then I opted for Calm Mind instead in this case, mainly because I really need Calm Mind to be able to beat a Calm Mind Store Power Mega Latias, as if I don't have Calm Mind, then a Calm Mind Store Power set actually sweeps my entire team. There's nothing I can do about it, so I definitely have to run Calm Mind on this to set up alongside it, and the Pixie Plate here does allow me to always 2-hit KO a max HP Mega Latias. If it's a calm spread, then like a calm Mega Latias, then I actually am not quite able to 2-hit KO, but if it's calm, then it's going to take a ton of damage from my priority and my Aerodactyl, so it's not a huge deal in that regard. I can deal with it, but in general I should be able to set up alongside Mega Latias with this set and beat it 1v1. At the very worst, I could take it down to the point where I can revenge kill with Lucario or Aerodactyl, which would be good enough for me. It still would be a bit of a nuisance if I can't take it out, but I think this should be able to 1v1 it with relative ease this week. So yeah, that's about all I want to say on the EV spread there. Next up is the Starmie. This is my dedicated switch into the Entei as well as the Terrakion. Not really a dedicated switch in per se, but it's probably going to be my first switch into Terrakion just because I know I can eat up a Stone Edge relatively easily, and unless he gets a crit I actually have a good chance of surviving two of them, and if he's scarfed, then I guess he has a chance to kill me, but if he's not scarfed, then I should be able to recover up in his face, maybe he'll miss a Stone Edge, something like that. I should be able to stand in against the Terrakion one way or another, but I also have the Venusaur to switch in as well as a defensive Sylveon, and I have Lucario to switch into Scarf Stone Edge as well, so that's something to keep in mind, but primarily I want this to switch into the Entei, but almost more importantly is Thunder Wave on this, as I think his initial switch into Starmie is either Hydreigon or Mega Latias, and either way, I would love to get those things paralyzed. So having Thunder Wave on this is really, really nice, especially if I get the Mega Latias paralyzed, then Sylveon beats it 1v1 so much easier, because I'll be able to Calm Mind first, I'll be able to Hyper Voice before he Calm Minds, just the order of events is a lot more in my favor when I do outspeed the Mega Latias, so Thunder Wave on this is essential. Rapid Spin for Hazard, Scald for the nice burns, and to hit the Terrakion and Entei super effectively, as well as hitting the Thundurus for a decent amount of damage, and recover for obvious reasons. So let's move on to the Lantern. Now this is a Volt Absorb set, pretty obviously going to be my counter to Thundurus Therian, unless he's like a Specs modest hidden power ground variant, he cannot 2-hit KO me, and even if he is, I don't think he can, which is pretty nice. I did feel like I needed some defensive investment in this just because his base defense is only 58 despite the fact that his base HP is so high. I still felt like I needed that extra defense investment to make sure I couldn't be beaten by like a mixed Thundurus T, as a Life Orb mixed Thundurus T might have been able to 2-hit KO me with something like, I don't know, 2 superpowers or knock off in a superpower, something like that, if I don't have that extra investment. Now this is a Rest Talk set, I want this thing to be alive for as long as possible. Unfortunately, I really can't do much to Mega Latias with this set, but I do think with having Sylveon and really even Starmie that I can directly switch into Mega Latias if need be, I should be okay in this match. Despite the fact that this can't really do much to it, but it's really a necessary Pokemon in my opinion, just so I can make sure that the Thundurus cannot be too much of an issue for my team. This also is a nice switch into the Entei, just because if Starmie happens to be weakened, I can just switch this in and not really fear the burn because I do have Rest, Sleep Talk, and I can just go on my merry way from there. So now let's move on to the next mon, that is the Lucario. Now this is purely a revenge killer this match. It's not going to be sweeping anybody, but it does get free switch-ins to a lot of his mons, and I really think that the combination of Extreme Speed and Bullet Punch is very, very effective against him in terms of revenge killing, as if I can get a little bit of chip damage on the Terrakion with something like my Starmie or my Lantern, then it should easily be in Bullet Punch range from this, and Extreme Speed is really nice to pick off the Thundurus T, which I think I'm going to be able to weaken down pretty well with my team, as it actually can't OHKO anything on my roster except the Starmie if it is Scarfed. So just in turn, I guess I can also OHKO the Aerodactyl as well, but obviously it can't outspeed unless Scarfed in that case as well. So Extreme Speed's nice to pick that off, and just Iron Tail Close Combat, the most powerful stab options in Lucario's arsenal, outside of something like High Jump Kick. I'm not running High Jump Kick when I have Close Combat, so just that coverage is pretty good, and Iron Tail will be able to do a ton of damage to the Mega Latias as well if he decides to make that a switch in. I'm going to make him pay for it if he does, especially because I have the chance at that defense boost, or defense drop with Iron Tail if he switches that in, so then I could go Iron Tail plus Extreme Speed, and maybe we'll be working without a Mega Latias this game because of it. I guess we can see on that. Now, next up is the Aerodactyl. Now, this set, Unnerve ignores the berries, which is pretty nice just in case he has something along the lines of a Citrus Azumarill. Excuse me. And Dragon Tail on this with the Jolly Nature is still enough to nearly 2-hit KO, if not 2-hit KO, a max HP Mega Latias. I believe if he's Bold max, I will not be able to 2-hit KO with Dragon Claw, but the idea is to weaken it, because if I keep it weakened, I can beat it with Sylveon and paralyze it with Starmie and all that stuff and be okay to maybe be able to knock out the Mega Latias, but it's easily the biggest threat to my team, and that's just because it's such a great Pokemon in the format. But I think I have enough tools on my team to be able to beat it. I'm just going to have to play well. I can't play poorly and expect to beat it just because it's such a good mon. And then Stone Edge Earthquake covers team pretty well overall, and of course Stealth Rocks for being able to break those potential focus sashes and wear down the likes of Entei and Thundurus T a little bit quicker. So yeah, that's the team, and I feel pretty good about this. Also, shout out to Merc on the nickname here, the old Burb. I think he'll appreciate that a little bit. And also, I want to give a shout out to our nickname here on the Lucario. Kyle, Case of the Two, gave me this idea. And Toge, if you see this, do let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this nickname. I think it's a pretty good nickname, if I do say so myself. Now, let's go ahead and hop on over to the battle, and let's see if I can pull off this win against the New York Metangs and maybe pick up my first win in my division. So, be right back. Alright, so let's take a look at team preview real quick, and as you can see, he brought Hydreigon, Drapion, Steelix, Thundurus T, Sceptile, and Azumarill. So there is no Mega Latias there, and I'm a little bit blown back here because I really saw no reason why he wouldn't want to bring it. One, it's great as a defogger against my team, as I could very easily and very well should bring Stealth Rock against him, and it turns out it looks like he did not bring anything that can get rid of hazards. So if I get up hazards early, they would be here to stay. But just in general, Mega Latias' matchup was so good against me, I'm just really surprised not to see it here. But then on top of that, there's no Entei or Terrakion, both of which I thought were okay. At least the combination of them was pretty good against my team, since Entei could break my walls for Terrakion to potentially clean up, just as a thought in terms of team prep on his end, but he didn't bring them. So now we've got essentially a different monster to be concerned about, those monsters being the Drapion and the Thundurus T, because if I can handle those two as well as keep my Mega Venusaur healthy, I should be in very good shape to win this game, just due to the fact that I really do feel like I have Thundurus T very well countered with my Lantern, and as well as checked by my Lucario, Aerodactyl, and Starmie, and really even Sylveon. I can't OHKO Sylveon with anything, and due to the fact that I'm Pixie Plate on Sylveon, I should be able to do a ton of damage to Thundurus as well. And the Drapion, I really just can't let it get up a free Swords Dance, just in case it's like sashed or something. I need to make sure I can do a ton of damage to it right away if it tries to go for a Swords Dance in my face, and it really can't OHKO anything on my team without taking a bunch of damage. That's the important part about this, and I think I'll be okay this match, honestly, just given team preview here. But let's go ahead and hop on into this and talk about the lead matchup a little bit. So I will be leading with my Mega Venusaur here, just because it has a great matchup against everything on his team, except I guess the Thundurus, and if he does lead Thundurus, then I have the perfect counter in my my Lantern. So I'm not really super concerned about that, but I did want to lead Mega Venusaur, maybe get my Mega Evolution up early so I can take hits from the Hydreigon better later on, just in case I'm really feeling an Iron Tail or a Flash Cannon coming at some point in the match. And I also do just kind of expect him to try to lead with Steelix to get his rocks up as soon as possible, so Mega Venusaur in general makes a lot of sense as a lead. So let's go ahead and hop on into this, as I lead with Venusaur and he leads with his Thundurus. So that's like, okay, well, we're going to have to switch right on out of there, and we're going to go straight into our Lantern, and that Psychic did about 24 to be exact, but it did not do very much at all. And that's pretty awesome. So now I'm just going to go straight for the Scald. He might switch into his Azumarill, he might switch into Hydreigon. Either way, if I can get that burn, that'd be really nice for that nice residual damage. And I do pick up the burn on the Hydreigon, so hey, my water is hot today, and that's something that doesn't seem to happen too often over here at the TokenMinorities, but it does seem to work out in this particular situation. Now here, he makes a nice play in U-turning into his Drapion, predicting my Sylveon, as I am not going to let this thing set up for free. I know I cannot die to anything unless he has a Banded Poison Jab and crits me. I guess he could crit me without Band, but he would have to be Banded Poison Jab to have any chance of taking me out. I will pause here on this turn, as I do just go for the Hyper Voice and do a chunk of damage to the Drapion. Now here, his most likely plays are either to go for the Poison Jab or go for the Earthquake. I think he knows that his matchup is not great given what he brought. I also know that he's a very competent player, therefore I think that he will feel that he is already on the back foot in this game, and therefore try to make the aggressive play and go for an Earthquake to try to take on the likely incoming Lucario, as Lucario otherwise is a great switch into Drapion stab. So I predict the Earthquake, and that's exactly what he goes for, and that's why I go into my Starmie knowing I can survive and immediately threaten it with a Scald, knowing that I will outspeed since I am actually speed creeping the Mega Latias. So down goes the Drapion, which is fantastic. Now here he goes into his Thundurus. My only play is to go into my Lantern. I really don't care what he goes for. He can predict that and go for Hidden Power Grass or Ground. Turns out he does have one or the other. It's probably Hidden Power Grass given how he went for that against the Starmie, but regardless, I do just eat up 2 of them and go for the rest. And just based upon how he's making these plays, I'm pretty sure he's a choice Thundurus in some way, and the damage is not saying Spec, so he's probably Choice Scarf. It's just an assumption. It's not really guaranteed, because that very well could have been Hidden Power Grass on that, and therefore he could have just gone for that against my Starmie anyway. So it's not really confirmed yet, but I am kind of expecting him to be Choice Scarf at this point. Now here, he goes for the Fling, expecting my Venusaur, and he goes for the Acrobatics, and this is the definition of fat, guys. There's a reason why his ability is thick fat, as that just did 0. The Acrobatics, even without the item, did absolutely nothing, and I'm able to take it out with the Sludge Bomb. I did get the Poison, which sped up the process of taking out the Sceptile, but I could have easily just switched into something like my Aerodactyl, or even my Lucario, because I can't OHKO me with anything unless he really gets a nice prediction. But I am just going to stay with my Starmie. I figured he might be Scarfed, but it's still more important to me to put this thing in range of Life Orb Extreme Speed from Lucario, so that's my game plan here. I really don't need this for anything else. I have so much that I can deal with the Steelix at this point that I really don't need to keep Starmie around, and I'd rather just get this thing in E-Speed range and make Lucario that much more of a threat to his team. So that's exactly what I do. I get a crit there. I really don't think it mattered. I think he would have been in range of E-Speed anyways, unless he's like very bulky. So now I'm just going to go for the close combat. Now I could have gone for Iron Tail in this turn, but I really didn't want to miss. I wanted to make sure I did as much damage to him as possible, to the point where he's definitely in range of any attack of Sludge Bomb from my Mega Venusaur. And I didn't really feel the need to switch directly into Mega Venusaur in case he made a nice play and went for Natural Gift Flying on that turn, and maybe took my Mega Venusaur out on the switch in. It was just my best play to go for close combat overall for the guaranteed damage against it. Now here, he's in a tough spot, because Mega Venusaur walls essentially everything he has left on his team. And Mega Venusaur is going to do what he does best in this game, and that is to wall the heck out of everything he has left. But let's see, he just goes for the Dark Pulse, as I kind of don't want to get flinched after I got my Synthesis up, so I'm just going to switch into my Sylveon, perhaps expecting him to maybe try to make a switch into his Steelix, or his, I guess his Steelix would have been the play here, as I'm expecting him to maybe try to make the switch into Steelix, and that's why I go into my Sylveon. It really didn't make a difference here, honestly. It was just kind of a pivot to maybe try to gain a little bit of offensive momentum, but really the ultimate goal was to get up a Wish with this and just put Venusaur back at high health. So it's not a huge deal at this point. It's essentially inevitable, because Mega Venusaur will be able to stall out the rest of his team. I really don't like the stally playstyle. Honestly, I don't. I know I do it a lot just because that's how my drafts seem to work. It's what I'm the most comfortable using. I just don't like it when things take a ton of turns to finish off. And at least in this case, it does kind of wind down a little bit faster than it could have. But that's thanks to the hacks, I think, in this game. As without the hacks, this would have taken a lot longer to inevitably end. But I think Mega Venusaur had game regardless as soon as the Thundurus went down. Honestly, Drapion, I guess, could kind of set up alongside me, but once he tried to go for an SD against my Sylveon, it was just in-game at that point, as Drapion was weakened, Mega Venusaur just won. So that will be the game, and this team worked about as well as it was supposed to, which is pretty awesome, and we do end that losing skid in the National Pokeball League, so I'm very happy about that, to say the least. Now, I did talk to Jesse, or Bidoofed, after the game and asked him, why the heck didn't you bring Megaladios and had such a great matchup against my team? And it turns out that he thought he had Megaladios. So I guess we somewhat dodged a bullet on that, as he thought Megaladios really didn't have a great matchup against my team, which I would agree. It really isn't that great anymore with all these new acquisitions, but no, he has Megaladios, and he didn't realize that. So I'm fully expecting to see Megaladios in the divisional rematch against him later on in the season. But it was still a good game overall, despite the fact that the matchup was a little bit rough given what he brought. So definitely check out his channel, his new channel. He has moved from WaterAndGrass to a channel called Bidoofed. It will be a link in the description below. I believe this will be his first upload on that channel, actually. So that's kind of cool to have those honors, but unless he might post something before that, I'm not really sure. Regardless, check him out. His content on his old channel was absolutely fantastic. There's a reason why it was such a large channel, and I really expect nothing but the same on his new one, so I highly recommend you hop on over to his channel. It will be the first line in the description below, and give him a look, because he does deserve the attention. So thanks for watching, guys. We have advanced to a 3-2 record, and we're looking a lot better now than we were a couple weeks ago, and I'm really looking forward to using this team more in the future, as I do think it has a lot of potential. I think it has turned us back into a championship contender, and that is the goal, and I will settle for nothing less as a coach in this league. So that's where we're going to be. So thanks for watching, guys, and next week we are supposed to play Rob and the Austin Taros, but unfortunately he actually requested that we postpone that battle until the end of the season, which is fine. We do have a week built into the NPL Season 4 postponements like that, and that's just what's going to end up happening here. He's way too busy next week, and quite honestly, I'm going to be pretty busy as well, so that's what's going to be the situation next week. And there will still be a major Pokemon League upload next weekend, but there will not be an NPL one for me. It'll come in 2 weeks, and that game will be against Sebastian, so top tier boy, very, very good player. And I'm pretty fortunate to have really a couple weeks to be preparing for that one, just because of his skill level. It's very, very high, and I'm going to have to bring my A game for that, as I have to do essentially every week in this league, because it is such a tough league. But I've rambled enough. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all in 2 weeks. Peace.